Hey, vibes.
Labs.
Welcome to the Astro Solsin Rewind. And today's video, we're going to do having no expectations in life.
Starting
So,
off with the new year.
yes, no expectations for this
2021.
2021. Okay, and here we go. Video.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Astro Solsin. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I wanted to go ahead and talk about expectations a bit, because I talked a little bit about, fear, expectations, and limitations. But some people, they asked for a little bit further on the expectations because they weren't really sure, pretty much, how that went. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. Now, expectations, is pretty much what you expect to happen, whether it's good or negative. See, that's the thing. Some people think that when I'm talking about don't have any expectations, that I mean, don't have any negative expectations. I'm saying don't have any expectations at all. Just live your life to the fullest and do everything that you got to do, work hard, and don't expect anything in return. You know what I'm saying? Because this world doesn't mean just because you put in work that you're going to receive something back. You get what I'm saying? Like, in certain ways, yeah, but then in other ways, no. Like, you could put in work physically and work out and everything and run and be on a diet, and, for sure you're going to be able to do whatever you're trying to do as long as you stick with it. But then you could work hard at, you could be at your job and be working hard to get a raise or working hard to get a promotion and all this stuff. And just because you worked hard doesn't mean you're going to get that raise or promotion. So you see what I'm saying? This is why you have no expectations. You just work hard and do what you have to do without expecting anything in return. Just like when, we get into the balance of giving and receiving. When you start to give from your heart and you don't expect anything in return, that's when you're getting into the right place, because everything's going to start coming back to you when you don't have any expectations, when you don't expect it. You just got to be aware of it, because it can come back to you in all different types of ways. It can come in the form of energy. It can.
So, what he was mentioning, a big part of not having expectations, like he mentioned, a lot of people think that's having well, it really depends on each person by themselves, because a lot of people do have problems with having negative expectations, and they're always expecting the worst kind of thing, and they're basically self-sabotaging themselves. That does happen to people, but also on the flip side of that, a lot of people are, they have positive expectations. And that's kind of people are subconsciously running on beliefs that, for example, like you mentioned with the job, right? Just because you work hard and stuff doesn't mean you get that raise or the promotion or whatever. I literally saw this happen to someone in my job last week. So the thing is, that person was probably running on this subconscious program that, oh, if I do everything that I'm supposed to, then I'll end up getting the promotion or the raise or whatever, because that's just how things work, right? But that's not the actual reality, and that was kind of a positive expectation that happened to him, and then he ended up being, disappointed someone else gets the promotion and all that fun stuff. But that's what happens when you start setting expectations instead of just basically being aware. Because once you start having that expectation, it's you kind of default into just operating based on that expectation. And then when you put that much energy, operating based on that expectation, and the outcome you were hoping for, it doesn't happen, you've put a bunch of energy into something that you were basically trying to control, and it didn't turn out the way you wanted, so you get angry and whatever, disappointed. But on the other hand, he also said, if you don't expect to get a certain thing back, you might still get that energy back, just not how you expect it. You know what I mean? If someone's oh, I'm going to the restaurant, we went to the restaurant last night, right? Let's say I was oh, I want ribs. They're $20 ribs, but they don't have them, and now I'm upset because I wanted ribs and we're not getting them. But then I find $20 on the floor, and then you're I'm still oblivious to the fact that oh, I can get $20 or whatever I want, but instead I choose to just focus on they don't have this when I just got this. That's the kind of mentality, right? It's having tunnel vision. But yeah, that's something to be aware of. It's not always focusing on the negatives, it's also the positives. And the positives are sometimes easier to buy into because sometimes, they're almost idealistic. It's like if the world was perfect, it should work like this. So you kind of expect it and want it to, but then, it's not always black and white. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you look back at like any point in your life and you kind of think about like the expectations you had at that point, like what you thought your life was going to be, like what you thought you were going to be doing, you were always way off.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to be a doctor.
Right, like anytime you look back and you're like, okay, what was I expecting before? And you see, well, that's definitely not what happened. Like that's not where I am. That's not what I'm doing. It's like, well, then the more you can not be doing that, the more you're kind of open to the possibilities of what you can be doing. Yeah.
Can become in the form of a new friendship or a new relationship, all sorts of things. So when you're giving back, something else does come back to you. But if you're over here expecting this and that, like, oh, if I give this person this, I'm trying to manifest $1,000 or whatever, that's not the way it works. You got to give from your heart. You got to give without, expecting to receive. But if you can do that, then you will receive, because that's the balance. You see, so our mind is very important when it comes to receiving. You got to not expect anything in return in order to really receive. You see, and this is like a constant, thing that goes on. You're always giving, just like if you're working hard, you're just always working hard, but you don't expect anything for it. That's just part of your life. It's just working hard, doing everything, you have to do, and not expecting anything for it, because as soon as you start expecting stuff, whether you expect something bad or you expect something good, it can change up everything, in your life. Because there's people out there that, they were expecting to, let's just say, come up on a whole bunch of money. They thought they were going to get a bunch of money, and they were expecting it, start planning their life out, what they were going to do with that money, and then they didn't get the money. And then that caused them to go, drop down into a negative light, and go into the underworld because what they expected didn't happen. So,
yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, and he just mentioned just now, like, that's like a big expectation, right? If you're it's funny because it syncs up with like the stimulus checks, right? And like people were hoping it was gonna be more or less or whatever, and like, now it's not as much as people were expecting. So it's funny because this is literally happening to like a lot of people in real life all over like the world right now. So if you're like expecting a bunch of money and you're like banking on that money and you're like making plans based on that and you're like, I'm gonna do this and I'll do that, and then the money you end up getting is like not even half of that or something. So then you're gonna be really bummed, right? Because you put all this like energy into that expectations, and like you projected that across like into your future, and well, guess what, like those plans don't align with your future, and now you're like, oh, what am I gonna do, where am I gonna go, like this isn't what was supposed to happen. But that's just how it goes sometimes. So the best thing, and if you think about it, like if you have these expectations, you're putting a lot of like energy and weight like mentally on yourself, like trying to maintain these expectations. Because if you have a plan and you really follow through with it, like you're constantly like tracking and like putting energy into like making this basically manifest. So imagine like having that expectation on yourself, and basically the entire time you're draining your energy into this something that's not even going to happen for yourself. So the more expectations you have, like trust me on this, you're going to like basically drain yourself. The more expectations you're trying to like manage, the more like control you're trying to have on like, oh, like da 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 da, like you're gonna be putting in more energy. Like it just takes more out of you. Like, so it's also like good to free up your energy by not having expectations. And there are like obvious ones that you need to like just basically operate every single day. Like, oh, I have to be at work at this time. Da, da, da. Like, if I don't go to work at this time, like, I can expect to be fired or something. Like, don't just start, like, doing, like, crazy stuff, obviously. But, Yeah, less expectations is actually you like having less like energetic, basically anchors on you. So that's basically a good thing though. I guess brush off every now and then. Let go of a bunch of like things that are worrying you. Granted, you're taking care of all your responsibilities, but don't have all these like crazy plans or like I need to get this, and this done, and then you're stressing out. Yeah. If you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, just like it's all this mental energy you're putting into trying to project the reality into being this expectation version when it's not, right? Like it's not, and you're trying to like be like, okay, if I do it this way, okay, I can make it this, I can do this, okay, but oh, it's not quite, so I gotta like squeeze this way and that way, and it's like just
Yeah.
stop trying to do all that.
Trying to like guide reality, like bouncing off the walls and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like you just gotta be like more present to what is right now, and again, not think about what's gonna be, or and then that's when the energy is freed up, right? Like the energy is then free to work on what you can do, and you're not worrying about what is going to happen. You're just like, okay, I'm going to put in the work, I'm going to do what I need to do. Like I know that if I put my energy into what I know that I need to be putting my energy into, free of expectations, that maybe it won't work out like how I want or whatever, but I'm gonna, get something from it. Like it may be a bad experience, and it's like, well, okay, that was
learned.
lesson learned, and then you be like, well, okay, let's try something new. Yeah.
Even when you expect something good to happen and it doesn't happen, it can end up turning into a negative situation for you. Or even if you expect something bad to happen and it doesn't happen, it'll end up being good. So you were expecting, something bad to happen and all this type of stuff, and you were worrying yourself out, maybe causing yourself to have some type of anxiety or stress and things like that. And then it didn't even happen the way that you thought it up in your mind. You see, so when you take away all expectations, you just live and you just go with the flow and you don't expect anything, and everything that you need will be supplied to you. That's a guarantee. If you just put in the work and you don't expect anything in return, things will start happening for you. But you have to be able to just do without expecting anything. Of course, if you're going to go to a job or something and they tell you they're going to pay you $20, an hour or something, and then when you get there and you work an hour and they're like, we're going to give you 10, then yeah, there's some issues with that. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is, like, because that's different. That's when somebody tells you they're going to do something. Like, if somebody tells you they're going to do something for you and then they don't do it, then that's, kind of on that person. That's the whole trust thing, and it'll start to break up that trust. But even then, sometimes you got to not expect things, because sometimes, people will promise you stuff. They tell you they're going to do this. They're like, oh, I promise, I'm going to do this. Don't worry about it. And then they don't end up doing it. I'm sure some of you have been there too. I've been there where I had those situations where, somebody told me they were going to do something. I expected them to do it, and then it didn't happen. And then either my feelings got hurt, or, I got down because I was expecting for this to happen or whatever. So, I just don't really expect much out of life except for to just continue to grow and learn. That's what I expect to happen for me, is to grow and learn, and, just to share the experiences that I have through my growth and through my learning, but expecting stuff is just, when you try to too much to look into the future, you'll eventually find out that you might end up being wrong, just like there's a lot of people out there that they want to be like psychics and mediums, and I talked about this before, because they even call them mediums because it's like they're trying to get in between you and spirit. They're trying to be the third party service that you need in order to contact spirit, when you don't need that. You can directly contact with spirit and have your spirit talks, because these mediums, they'll try to come out and tell you like, oh, I got this information and this is what's going to happen with your life and all this type of stuff. And then, sometimes, You know, some people might have a little bit accurate, but then the rest of it will be inaccurate and all this type of stuff, you know, because there's certain things you can find out without even getting spiritual about a person. I won't even get too far into this, but you know, these mediums and psychics and stuff, they'll have you expecting stuff, telling you this is what's going to happen with your life and all this stuff, and then it doesn't even happen and all this, you know. Some of you have been there and went through these whole psychic things and realized like that's just a waste of time. You know, if you're going to rely on a psychic, then you need to become the psychic for your own life. You need to learn how to decode your own dreams. You need to learn how to tap into your subconscious mind. You need to learn how to tap into these grids. You know, it's a lot of work, but you need to do it yourself, you know. You don't need to rely on anybody to, you know, tell you what your dreams mean except for yourself. You know, people come to me and they're like, man, what does my dream mean? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, you got to find out what your dreams mean. I can help you learn how to decode it, but I don't want to sit here and decode all your dreams. Like, to be honest, I don't even have time for that. You know, like, I got stuff I got to do, you know, and I got my own dreams to decode. You got to learn to decode your dreams too. You know, because that's what our team's about. We're about helping people get their own direct experience and learning how to solve a lot of their spiritual issues and problems themselves and not having to rely on a third party, you know, a medium, a psychic or something like that to do it for them. So, yeah, you know, just don't have any expectations with anything. Just live your life, you know, be a good person and continue to grow and learn, and things should be all right, because expectations lead a lot of people into negative vibrations. You know, whether it's a negative expectation or a good expectation. You know, they're expecting something good to happen, then it doesn't happen, and then they get into a low vibration. Or they expect something bad to happen and it doesn't happen, but because they were already expecting it, their vibration has already been lowered before it even happened. So then their vibration might raise up a little bit, but it wouldn't have been as high as if they just didn't expect anything in the first place. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you all for watching. Peace in and out, but love, my highest vibrations, and always my gratitude. Hey, what's up, everybody?
So, just to kind of like round that off, like he was saying, when it comes to like, you know, obviously not having expectations, comes down to like, don't focus on what you want to happen, but like focus on what you can do. Because a lot of like worrying about, oh no, this isn't happening. A lot of it's kind of like, well, you can't do anything about it, so don't worry about it, right? Like that, in my opinion, is like one of my things I go to. It's like if you can't really do anything about it, there's no point in worrying about it, because at that point, then you're just kind of like missing more opportunity in like the ways that you can do something about it for other things. So it's like, you know, don't keep running into a brick wall, go around the wall.
Yeah, focus on the things that you can do something about and not the things that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good perspective to have.
Practical.
Let's see. Vibes Noel and Kiwi and Nando and Jonathan. Hey. Thank you everyone for joining us for the Astro Rewind. And have vibes. And yeah, see you next time.
See you.